Eagle pose or Garudasana. This pose is a balancing pose, and it's great to use in all of your classes where you want to really encourage hip strength, stability in the pelvic girdle, and you can even incorporate arm opening. We're going to start with a modification or variation on the back. So if you could come down with your head facing this way, come on out of the pose, head facing this way, on your back with your feet facing me. Lay down on the back. All right, so just stay here for a moment. The benefits of eagle pose are really connected to hip opening. There is an idea that has been all around the medical industry. It's shown up in studies, and it is the way our body works. So our body works by getting our circulation from our heart and lungs, and it pumps it to the rest of our body. Well, the heartbeat, that pumping, is this like squeezing, pumping, circulatory system. And whenever we cut off or we close off something like a hose, then we open it back up and let that flood the area with whether it be oxygen, whether it be blood, whether it be energy, or whatever it is. So this pose really gets that benefit of the squeeze and soak effect, okay? As well as the hip and shoulder girdle, which we'll talk about how to really get the maximum out of that. So this variation, the supine variation, is great for people who have knee, wrist, hip injury, low back, or any type of spinal challenges. I would recommend trying this before doing another pose. Again, with any type of injury, I always recommend getting cleared from their medical team before doing yoga, because we don't want to do anything that's going to compromise the student. All right. So for this pose, we start off supine. So if you were to start a class and you know that you want to work towards eagle pose, starting them in this position, using this variation is a great way to go. All right, bring your feet flat to the floor, knees to the sky. If I were to be teaching a class, I'd give her breath cues and all of this. For the purposes of today, we're doing the physical body movements, okay? So for eagle on the back, it would take your right leg, since we did left leg the first time, take your right leg, reach it up to the sky, and spread your toes. I could play around and take it slow and add flavor, roll ankle, wiggle toes, say things to your leg, your toes, your whatever. Look at your toenails, whatever it is. Then eagle legs, take your thigh all the way across and bring your opposite leg so both your shins are parallel to the floor. So bring your foot off the floor, lift knee up, shins parallel to the floor, okay? And it's very common for students to be like, where are we going? It's okay. You just give them feedback in the moment, and that's really how students figure it out. So then on the other side, they already know where they're going. From here, we get this notion that we have to wrap our foot around the calf and get the double hook. So we have the hook here, this is hook 1, and then to wrap foot around calf would be hook 2. That is not required. That does require a lot of IT opening, hip flexibility, as well as shin to be open of this foot, calf to be open on this leg, for everything, ankle, all of these different components need to be primed in order to get the double hook. And the double hook may be something you work towards, so you could do 2 things. If you're going for just the hip opening, the squeezing, all of that, you can get without the double hook. You press ankle and leg into each other. So they squeeze in, at the same time, squeeze your knees and thighs together. So there's this squeezing, this connecting, And what that is doing is activating all the benefits we were talking about before, as well as opening up those tight areas that may help you get to the next stage. So what you would do if you were going towards the double hook would be to just press your foot and reach it towards the outside of your calf. And then the next time you go towards the back of your calf. And then you just take time and eventually work your way, if your body allows, into that double hook. Okay? All right, so that's the on your back with the legs. You can even have feet come down. So you can depend on whatever your intention is based off your variation. So this is an eagle leg variation. If you're doing a restorative or you're ending a class, this may be a good place to come. You could even take a twist with these legs and at the end of class, like a supine twist, and do something like that. Okay, so that's the legs. We're gonna keep those there. Then we have the arms. I love eagle arms on the back because there's so much feedback from the floor and the shoulders. Y'all don't mind our co-host over there. He's making his debut. He loves doing the yoga, so he's really having a hard time watching us do it. So eagle arms on the back is great because then the shoulder blades are pressed into the floor. And that gives a little extra feedback that can be challenging to get without having like somebody's hand on your back. And so this really gives a nice reminder of proprioception. Like, where is my body? How does it relate to me in this space? Okay, so a great way to come from your back is to reach arms forward to the sky, or to reach arms overhead. Is totally up to you. I usually do straight up to the ceiling because it's a little easier to orient. Okay, so whichever side I'm going for, and I usually go for the opposite of whichever leg is forward. So I'll tell her to wiggle your left fingers. Okay, so that arm is gonna be under your opposite arm. Then I'll take a deep breath, spread your arms, spread your shoulders. Exhale, wrap your left fingers under right. And so there's hook one with the elbows, and then you have option for hook two when you cross arms and wrists. And then you can point all the fingers away from elbows like knife hands, or you could have fingers interlaced if that's something that's accessible. You really can play with that as well. Here, I would give the cue to feel into the connection to earth. So this variation is great for grounding, that element of connecting to the ground here, feet connecting to ground here with low back, squeezing legs and connecting and activating root chakra, and then having even engagement in the Muladhara, so like drawing through, in the Mula Bandha, having that engagement there. And then inhale to press your upper back into the floor. Exhale, slide your shoulders away from your ears enough to feel a little bit of something in your neck. And so I'd give some play there. You could even use this leg variation for abs. So I have her unwind her arms, press your both hands into your right thigh, like on top of each other, and then bring your shins off, the foot off the floor, shins parallel to the sky. So here, squeeze legs together, take a deep breath in. Exhale, press your hands into legs and your legs back into your hands. Press, 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 press. Inhale, soften. Exhale, press, press. And so that really activates the core. Just know you would want to do both sides to keep it balanced. So that is the eagle pose supine variation. All right, we're gonna also do another variation. Remember, anytime you get your students from the ground to standing, take it slow. So I'll have her roll to one side, whichever side, press up into tabletop, or come into a down dog, or come into a forward fold, or do, if you're going into vinyasa, she could do a chaturanga, up dog, down dog. There's a lot of different ways you can get people into the next thing. So here I might do a down dog, lift your hips up. And then step your feet forward, bring yourself into the forward fold, and then press hands into shins. Inhale, reach your chest forward. So you see, like, I can bring that exhale, fold, that element of connectivity. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, bring hands down to heart level. So I can, wherever she is, we can move and use and plug in those things from other places, plug in that element from the vinyasas and the sun salutations into a transition. If I'm looking at the student and I feel like, okay, we're good, we're done here, we're moving somewhere else, get creative with some of those other tools, plug them in as needed. All right, so we're gonna do eagle pose with the side profile. So you can stay here. This is a balancing pose, so having already warmed hips is ideal. Having already warmed legs is ideal for maximum capability in this pose. And so I'll have her either start with her arms forward or her arms up, or her hands together. It really just depends on where we're coming from. You could come from chair pose, you could come from Tadasana, you could come from Warrior 3 and bring the leg all the way around. So there's lots of different ways to play with this. Okay, so I have her start with hands to heart for balance, connection, centering. Shift your weight onto whichever leg you're going to use. Lift the heel of the opposite leg. And then bend your standing leg enough for you to feel something. Lift your opposite leg up. Cross your leg over your thigh and squeeze your ankle into your shin. All right, so from here, the squeezing and the support could be a block underfoot. And so she can bring toe down to block. If this is like, okay, not quite helpful, or maybe she's more flexible and is going for a double bind, she could bend her standing legs, or bend your standing leg and bring your toe all the way to the floor on the outside, if that's comfortable. So that might be, if she's getting close to the bind, bringing foot down to the floor by her foot may be that next step, okay? So we have that option, and then you have the double bind option, of course. And then once you get the legs, then get the arms. You can do a reverse. Just know that the legs sometimes take a little more effort than the arms. It depends on your audience, honestly. If you have people with really tight shoulders, the arms might take more effort than the legs. So really based off of your students, you can determine which ones to do first, or you could do them at the same time. And so you can take this option of arms, you could play with an extended prayer, so hands together above head, option of arms. You could do archer arms, you could have a reverse prayer. You could play with anything in this pose. You don't have to do an eagle arm variation. But if you do, you take whichever is the opposite of your lifted leg and wrap that arm under. From there, you could play with pressing elbows away from chest, sliding shoulders down, lifting elbows up. There's a lot of ways to play here. Spreading fingers, wiggling fingers, whatever. And you can even add an element of challenge. You can have them touch their elbows to their knee and fold forward. There's lots of play that can happen here. And then once they fold forward, can even press back into an eagle warrior 3. So you can just play, have fun with this pose. You can come out of the pose. Have fun with this pose. This is a pose that can be really challenging and also very beneficial to extremities, circulation, lymphatic drainage, and all of that. So enjoy. And that was eagle pose. If you are a student and you're practicing this for your enjoyment, let me and the team know your questions in the comments. And if you are a teacher trainee in the Yoga Queen Academy, go ahead and write your questions down, bring them to our live sessions. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Hope that this is helpful in your pose journey, and I'll see you in the next video.